You mentioned artificial intelligence in there. And, I think you and I were backstage at the Consensus conference, 3 years ago. I think it was when we both met William Shatner for the first time.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
We were both pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Fan moment for sure.
Yeah, you have to, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yes.
But, that was amazing. And you said, Brian, the tokens, the blockchain is what AI needs for it to function in the future. And you were the very first guy that ever said that to me. And I didn't really understand it at first, and I had to think about it. And then all of a sudden we've seen so many people now talking about that. Where are we with AI and blockchain? Where are we with AI in general? Again, talk about sucking the oxygen out of the room. It seems to be dominating venture capital right now. Silicon Valley, I would say, is all about AI. You know, you had made a comment to me a few months ago that very few people in Silicon Valley actually care about blockchain. It's actually other places that do. And I think you make an interesting point. So maybe you can speak on all of those things.
So first of all, I actually think that tokens broadly are the best bet for a regular person to hedge themselves against the future of AI. Why do I say that? Because what is the asset class that AI is going to interact with? It's going to be crypto, but not just as a means of exchange, but as a means of creating value. So the powerful and really fascinating thing about a sort of agentic AI with a token is that for the first time, an AI has true agency because it has true power, because it can mint a token, meaning that we can now work for an AI because the AI is making money of some form or something of value. Now, how does he make that money? Either he makes a smart contract, generates his own token, launches Solana. Some versions of that exist, right? Small as it may be. Or maybe it's just a really, really smart trading bot on AI that trades really, really well and essentially starts to make profits and use some of the profits to essentially pay users to do stuff that they needed to do. In the last 4 years, something like $48 billion worth of airdrops were given to users. Those are mostly protocols, Web3 gaming projects, some AI stuff. What's the difference between paid by protocol and being paid by an AI agent? Effectively nothing from the end user standpoint, right? Now, you say that's a lot of money. But when you consider that essentially that's just a proxy for the attention economy, because it's a form of advertising. Last year, the advertising industry globally was $1.1 to $1.2 trillion, right? In a highly inefficient advertising market. Like anyone out there who's like spending money on Google ads or Facebook ads is going to tell you it's not working out for me. Yeah. And yet they're still spending money on that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's 1.2 trillion. So that's the gap, right? In terms of the value that can be shared across the entire ecosystem. That's going to be fully tokenized. The entire advertising space, the entire attention economy is going to be tokenized. Who are going to be the agents that are trading that? It's going to be AI agents. How are you as a user going to be sort of owning assets in a space where there's probably going to be more trading activity between agents to agents than between humans to humans? I mean, in the market already today, it's essentially bots that are trading against bots, programmed by users. It's not one human trader trading against another human trader. You might have that experience in Robinhood or eToro, and you're like, hey, I'm trading. But in reality, at the back, the market makers and the bots are basically doing 99% of all that.
Is that what's happening with the market makers?
I mean, they provide liquidity, yes, but they're also trading, right? And in crypto, most of the activity now is basically traded in terms of volume.
You guys are market makers too, so you would know that. You use a lot of AI and AI.
Using AI, sort of using agentic AI bots and so on, they're all trading, right? And that's typical.
That's what Twitter is, they say as well. Just bots and bots.
Of some form, right? So that means that the liquidity will come from those areas as well. And so if you think that's going to accelerate and there's going to be more intelligence and there's going to be more trading, then as an end user, I think you're not just going to be maybe delegating your trades to an AI. You're going to be essentially looking at tokens that AI themselves might want to utilize, which means again, that the way you're not going to compete with an AI in terms of performance.
How do you get out of a rat race? How do you create wealth not only for yourself, but also for the generations to come after?
I am absolutely amazed with the quality of companies that we're getting exposure to.
We go on to Zoom calls with the innovators and the folks who are building new applications in metaverse, blockchain, artificial intelligence, decentralized finance.
What's going on, everybody? Thumbs up if you can see me.
We are focusing on early stage investment.
And the quality of people that we're getting exposure to, whether it be Dan Tapiero with 1RT, Jason Ma from Open, Yat Siu from Animoca.
It's been a phenomenal experience thus far. It has far exceeded my expectations.
We are focusing on cutting-edge technologies.
I view it now as the best investment I've ever made. The upside, I view, is unlimited.
And as a retail investor, I would never get this exposure anywhere else outside of Investment Club.
See you in the Investment Club.
So what is the asset class? Is it buying shares in OpenAI? You can't do that. Good luck for most of the guys out there.
Yeah.
Or at some crazy valuation, for instance. So what even are these AI agents going to be using? They're going to be using tokens. So that means, by owning tokens, you essentially are somewhat already indexed against essentially a digital future, which essentially is what AI is developing even more dependencies and more growth in that AI future. So
the specific tokens though.
Well, I would say specific, but also index tokens, right? I think there's going to be a rise of index tokens. They're not just indexed in terms of maybe gaming or AI, but they're also going to be tokens representative of ecosystems. For instance, if you thought that AI is going to be building a lot of stuff on Solana, then you would just buy Solana. Solana won't go up as high as a meme coin might, for instance, right? But it's an index for that market, right? So you don't have to bother or deal with essentially buying sort of 10 or 20 or 30 different tokens. You basically just hold a couple of those major ones, those major alts, because you think the AI agents are going to be using them. And so you have to see where they are, of course, right? And of course, there are certain AI tokens that you can maybe specifically pinpoint on. Again, similar type of direction, but it's easier for you to invest in them than to try to compete with them. That's going to be difficult to do so, right? But the volume of sort of trading, and I think it's also going to really explode DeFi as well, because AI agents are going to be trading with themselves and trading with each other. And that's basically going to be all happening on DeFi rails. And that to me is going to be really accelerating that as well, which means, again, there's opportunities when you have more liquidity, more TVL, more activity that's happening on chain, and therefore essentially more growth opportunities. Again, I think indicating much more direction in terms of alts. Now, this is why I think Bitcoin won't be sharing, although they'll rise in value, won't share the same in terms of that value construct, because Bitcoin is not an asset that's used, right? It's everyone wants to hold on to their Bitcoin. And I imagine an AI will do the same thing. There's more value in holding your Bitcoin than to trade it. So Bitcoin isn't going to be the tradable asset the same way. It's not going to be the one that's going to be used. I think people are obviously experimenting with things like BRC20s, ordinals and so on. And that's rising. But in comparison to what's happening in terms of volume in the altcoin space, it's still a very distant, it's still a very distant comparative.
When will we see these coin indexes, do you think? When will they become liquid, or how will they be offered? Will there be AI agents holding that? Will they? I'm just kind of curious.
Holding them. I think how
can you trust them? And
so this is where it's interesting, right? Because when you have on-chain records, when you essentially can audit the smart contracts, then you have third parties that can verify that type of stuff. What we're building with Mocha ID is a reputation system. But at the end of the day, nobody said the reputation had to be human. You could build a reputation network under an AI agent who's over time built a reputation that you can trust, right? And I would argue that mentally we're already trusting algorithms anyway, right? I mean, even historically, as something as simple as streetlights, there's some algorithm that says green and red. And that's very simple. It's very binary. You can cross the road and you can cross the road. But it's not a human agent that's sitting there saying time for red and time for green. It's basically something that does it automatically and you just follow. So are we not already following the rules of some kind of machine that's programmed in our life in very basic terms? How is that different from extending it into even more complex facets of our life? I don't think it's that distant. And when you think, for instance, the fact that I go to an Uber rating and I have a, 4.9 rating, for instance, right? That of course users are generating. It's a reputation score, but I don't know who gave me that reputation. If someone else just fudges the numbers, for instance, right? Of course, with blockchain, you can verify it. I would just trust it at face value, right? If you're going to sort of buy something from an Amazon seller or ratings, and he has a high rating, you just kind of trust that, which is why people bought it, because there's currency. The same like how most people might trust an influencer who has 1 million followers on Instagram as opposed to 1,000, because he makes an assumption that is a valid sort of measurement scale because of the fact that it's socially accepted, right? So again, blockchain solves that, and I think actually with things like Mocha ID, you get essentially enhanced forms of reputation, and you can verify them. And I think we're going to start trusting AI agents in much the same way that we trust an Amazon seller rating. Again, I don't think we're that far apart from that mentally anyway.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith.
because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.